Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Imagine you're just chilling out in your backyard and a Corellian freighter lands right there in front of you and two spacers jump out and offer you a trip of a lifetime to the Star Wars galaxy. Where would you go? Well, for me, that's pretty simple. I go to Coruscant. I've always loved extreme places on Earth, whether that means floating in the middle of the ocean, climbing up high into the mountains, and of course getting lost in megacities. Extreme places give us extreme opportunities for exploration and adventure, and it allows us to test our abilities and limits, which is especially important for young folks nowadays who are growing up in an increasingly safe and regulated world. When I first saw Coruscant all those years back in The Phantom Menace, I was completely awestruck. Here was a world that was a true ecumenopolis, a planet-wide city. And what you saw from the skies was only the uppermost levels of the city. At its highest point, Coruscant was 5,127 levels high. This top level was otherwise known as the planet-wide Galactic City. This is where trillions of the wealthiest individuals in the galaxy worked, lived, and played. First, you had the Federal District, which is where the galaxy was ruled from. In this area, you could find the Senate building, Senate offices, and Jedi Temple, which later would become the Imperial Palace and center of the Empire. This was also where the military was headquartered, along with intelligence and security bureaus. Then there was Cocoa Town, short for the Collective Commerce District. This area was full of businesses and commercial real estate. A quick fun fact for all you future potential tourists to Coruscant, the Death Stick was invented in a laboratory right here in Cocoa Town. Then there is the Kuru District, which was kind of like the red light district of the Galactic City. On the surface, you had more reputable establishments like the Galaxy's Opera House. Below that was a more dodgy area known as the Entertainment District. Here you could find sports bars, brothels, nightclubs, and gambling establishments like the Outlander Club, which also happens to be a great place to place sports bets and score some Death Sticks. Because of its great location, the Entertainment District was a perfect place for upper-class Coruscanti to mingle and acquire services from lower-level Coruscantis. The one section of the higher levels of Coruscant that wasn't covered in gleaming buildings and bustling with life and traffic was the district known as the Works. The Works was full of old factories and other industrial buildings that once helped Coruscant be a dominant manufacturing planet. But with rising wages, living costs, and the opening of new hyperspace lanes to Outer Rim territories, the factories on Coruscant found it hard to compete and began shutting down one by one. But we're really barely scratching the surface right now. We haven't really gotten to the under levels of Coruscant, all 5,000 layers of it. When I was a kid, I really loved the Knights of the Old Republic video game, which took players to the underworld of a similar planet-wide city on Terrace. I remember getting lost in the depths of the city, finding danger and treasure around every corner. To this day, it was probably one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. So naturally, when LucasArts announced a new game that was set in the Coruscant underworld titled Star Wars 1313, I was extremely excited. But unfortunately, that game was canceled. And BioWare, the company that made Knights of the Old Republic, was bought by EA, which basically sucks the soul and creativity out of any small indie developer. So unfortunately, what we know about the Coruscant underworld is as limited and as mysterious as the place itself. Now, the first few hundred layers beneath the surface of the planet were relatively clean and usually separated into little districts and neighborhoods. Just like here in New York City, you might have a jewelry district, a Chinatown, and then maybe a Little Italy neighborhood. On Coruscant at level 3,204, you have the Old Iranian District. Prior to the destruction of Alderaan, this was like any other neighborhood. It had parks, community centers, all designed with Old Iranian influences. Although many of the citizens of level 3,204 hadn't been back to Alderaan or had never even seen Alderaan, they felt a deep connection to their home planet. So when news of the destruction of Alderaan hit the community, candlelight vigils were held, which eventually turned into riots. Imperial stormtroopers were eventually called in, and they pacified the entire level. Level 2,685 was known for its famous club, Kaskar. This nightclub was a famous spot for all types of influential beings on Coruscant who liked a little bit of privacy when they were having fun. Palpatine occasionally visited this level in secrecy in order to see how his people were doing. Unlike his predecessors, the Chancellor understood how important it was to see how all of his citizens were doing, even the ones down below him. Because he was smart enough to understand that any trouble that happens downstairs will eventually come and rise to the surface. Against Obi-Wan Kenobi's wishes, Palpatine once took Anakin Skywalker down to visit level 2,685 when he was just a Padawan. The Chancellor showed the young Jedi just how corrupt the Senate was. While down there, Anakin saw senators playing games of chance with money they had stolen from their constituents. At level 1997, we're just getting to places where decent folk just didn't roam around. Aside from the odd seedy cantina, this level smelled like soot and waste product, mainly because it was full of gigantic industrial waste compactors. By the time you reached level 1789, all you would see around you were giant junkyards full of spare parts, broken speeders, and broken dreams. Further down at level 1325, you had an assortment of warehouses. This is where Clone Trooper 5s ended up after finding out about the inhibitor chips placed inside all the clones. He attempted to meet Anakin Skywalker at level 1325 in order to expose Palpatine's Order 66 plan. Level 1325 was so desolate he was hoping not to run into any police or other clone troopers. At these lower levels, law enforcement and government presence were rarely felt. The Coruscant elites up in their ivory towers more or less left this area alone. There was, however, the infamous Coruscant security force which occasionally ventured down there. Generally, the lower levels you go, the tougher these lawmen would look. They usually were heavily armored in leather and metal gear, and their forces were supplemented by security droids. They also used an assortment of probes, speeders, and speeder bikes to cover more ground. If things got really rough, clone troopers or stormtroopers could be called for backup from the surface. Where there wasn't law enforcement, there were always gangs and syndicates that kind of patrolled their own territories. About a dozen levels lower was the infamous level of 1313, an assortment of slums, warehouses, and other rundown buildings. This level is known for its rampant crime and poverty. Ahsoka Tano found herself down at this level after being framed for the bombing of the Jedi Temple. Despite being so deep, there were still plenty of living beings down at level 1313. For instance, Asajj Ventress was hiding in self-exile one level lower. For individuals born this low below the planet's surface, the stars and the sun and the sky were all myths, and most likely they would probably never live to see it. As we continue to lower levels, it becomes relatively difficult to travel by just regular lifts. Oftentimes, it's much faster to go through one of the large portals that sunk into the planet in various areas. By the time you reached a level 127, you hit the central power distribution grid. Much of Coruscant's utilities were provided through the lower levels, whether it be electricity, water, or garbage services. Legends say in even deeper levels there were all sorts of gigantic monsters like granite slugs which ate garbage and refuse, and even more frightening semi-intelligent beasts like the Sithan, who were rumored to be descendants of humans that were exiled to the underlevels of the city long ago. The Sithan were completely blind, they had skin over where their eyes should have been, and they enjoyed eating humans. It was said level 5 was the lowest habitable level of Coruscant. Below that you just had toxic sludge and gases. Of course, no one really knows because no one's really been down there, and obviously I'm not that adventurous, so I don't really care. But should you be interested to venture down below into the depths of Coruscant, remember to always bring your own air supply. Maybe pick up a blaster from a pawn shop in the lower levels, and always travel with some backup because you never know what kind of threat is just lying around the corner. I really do hope that one day we will revisit the lower levels of Coruscant. I hope Lucasfilms realizes how much potential that setting has. You know, whether it's for a video game or a TV show, I don't really care. I just want to see more of it. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button so you know when our next video comes out. And also like us on Facebook. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.